Welcome, Dead Parents, Paradoxes, and Grask, to episode 416 of an Unearthly podcast, streaming live on the 17th of August 2021, and featuring Father's Day by way of Curse of Fenric with a dash of Pyramids of Mars, aka Sarah Jane Adventures, The Temptation of Sarah Jane Smith, written by Gareth Roberts and starring Elizabeth Sladen as Sarah Jane Smith, Tommy Knight as Luke Smith, Daniel Anthony as Clyde Langer, Anjali Mohindra as Ronnie Chandra, and Alexander Armstrong as the voice of Mr. Smith. I am Bill Sylvia, the writer in black, and with me are Randy Ronson McCulloch.
Boy, after doing Big Finish, that's a huge cast list.
And Thomas Fireheart.
Who put all these onions here?
Considering the last one we did had a cast of 2.
Yeah.
Not 2 main characters, 2.
Not even Nicholas Briggs throwing in a monster voice. So, yeah, once again, Mad Matt Winchell's not with us. He is recovering, but he has to do work at this point to make up for lost time.
Luckily, he didn't lose his job, which is good considering he had not started long before he had to take sick leave.
Exactly. So, COVID aside, how's everybody's weeks been?
Not too bad. I mean, after a chat I had with the supervisor yesterday, it's likely that hopefully the ball will get rolling to get me to 5 shifts a week in a way that works for me. So I can still have today off. Because I essentially had to turn down an option for a 20-hour week because it would have been Monday through Friday. And I would basically be at work right now. So, like, no. This is like one of the few social interactions I have every week that's consistent. So, no.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm not giving this up.
I know that feeling.
Right.
And it was... And also yesterday, for the first time, I got too impatient and decided, fuck it, I'll shave my own head instead of waiting for my dad to sort out this issue with the sink.
I know that feeling as well.
Which was kind of funny because I was doing it in a really weird way. So I'd stop and look in the mirror at certain points in the bathroom and just like kind of have to stifle a laugh because of just how fucking ridiculous my head looked. Because of all the weird spots where there was still hair. Yeah, that was an interesting trial. Apparently I did pretty well though for a first attempt. I think my mom only pointed out like one thing that I'd missed. And it was like, holy shit, how the fuck did I not fuck up the back of my head where I can't see anything?
I don't know. Keep those razors away from my head, man. I'm the exact opposite from you guys. You guys are just like, let's shave the head. I'm like, no. I then quote the song Hair from Grease, yeah.
Well, I've been going a couple months between cuts and still not taking it all off lately. I kind of complained a little bit on Facebook because I let people talk me into taking showers at night, but I don't own a hairdryer, and my hair is really thick. So what ended up happening was I took a shower at 1, and my hair was too wet until 3 o'clock for me to go to sleep without soaking my pillow.
Go buy, I think, a $10 hairdryer. Personally, you know, I take
Can't
showers.
do that at 1 a.m. though.
True.
Can't do that at 1 a.m. around here. If there was a 24-hour Walmart, then maybe, but there's not.
You guys don't have a 24-hour Walmart? Jesus.
It's a 25,000 population town. After 9 o'clock, it's pretty much a ghost town.
Yeah, I know. We're a 100,000 population city, and we've got 4.
Or should I say, during the semester, the area with the bars is still popping after that time of night, but nowhere else in town is.
Okay, I do know that feeling, because around here, downtown Madison, which is, where campus is, and the bars that are on campus just kind of rock until 4 in the morning. You go to any place else in town, and it's dead. It's a dead zone. But that doesn't stop there from being a few 24-hour shops around. Like this one Walmart on the south side, which we refer to as the creepy Walmart.
Yeah.
Because you actually park under the building, and it's, yeah.
Gotcha.
But it's 24 hours, and we'd been known to roll up there after Aaron got off work to do some quick shopping.
Now that I think about it, even in Danbury, where the population was 80K, the only 24-hour places were usually diners and gas stations and McDonald's.
You had 24-hour McDonald's? We only have a couple of those.
Yeah. The drive-thru's been 24 hours for at least a decade. The inside flirted with the idea and then changed its mind. But here in Athens, McDonald's closes at 9 p.m. and that is some serious whiplash.
Yeah, that's some what the hell. I mean, they usually close at midnight around here.
I didn't even know it was in the contract allowed for McDonald's to close that early. But no, if I walk down the busy street for this part of town at 9:30 at night, the only light on I think is the calzone spot, and that's like it's advertised as the late night place to get food.
Yeah, there's only a couple of 24-hour McDonald's here, one of which is over on the north side of town. And there is one of the McDonald's down here that flirts with being 24 hours. It'll go 24 hours for about 3 months and then stop for about a year and then go 24 hours for 3 months.
Maybe like a summer-only 24-hour thing?
No, it's not summer only. It's like they keep testing the waters to see if they can keep it up and then discover that it's not cost-worthy for them to keep it up.
Gotcha.
And so they postpone it by a year and then try again, yeah. But no, we have two 24-hour Walmarts at least that I'm aware of, and I think I know of two more. Denny's at least usually is 24 hours, at least a couple of them. Usually Perkins is, but I don't eat at Perkins. Since the ones that are 24, the good Perkins in town went out of business, and the only one left on this side of town is crap. Go figure. Other than that, there isn't much in the way of 24-hour stuff. I mean, I think you can get pizza until about 2 a.m. if you like order from Pizza Hut, but any place else is closed by 9:30. Which always sucked for me because I'd cruise around. I would, it used to be Taco Bell was the late night place around here. Because they used to have, open till 4 a.m., fourth meal. But they stopped doing that ages ago. So now I think there's one Taco Bell that's open until 2 a.m., and that's clear over on the southeast side of town. Anything around here closed by 9:30.
With Taco Bell open that late and also serving breakfast, they might as well start doing 24-hour spots.
Yeah,
at least in busy neighborhoods.
I think it was about the time they started serving breakfast that they started closing earlier.
Because the managers didn't want to sleep 2 hours between shifts.
Yeah. I just miss it because I used to work until, 1:30 in the morning.
Right.
And I would drive through Taco Bell on the way home, get my dinner, go home, eat my quesadilla or whatever I got that night, watch a little bit of television, and go to bed.
I know when I had a car, once 11 p.m. hit and most places were closed, from then on until they closed, Wendy's and Taco Bell always had lines out halfway down the street.
Well, yeah, that happens a lot downtown. I think the Taco Bell downtown on State Street's like 24 hours.
Mm.
Because, yeah, you get those people that come out of the bars at 1, 2 in the morning, drunk as skunks,
Mm-hmm.
and they want something to eat. I know Parthenon, which is a Euro place on State Street, does a mean business on, like, Friday and Saturday night. There's a few other places in there that you just got lines around the block. Taco John's on Regent Street used to be that way too, but that went out of business and got replaced by something else. And it did not go out of business for good reasons.
Ah.
It got shut down. But my week has been kind of mediocre. I had a very bad end of the week last week. A few of my online friends and I got in this huge fight that broke up one of my games. It's since been everybody's since apologized to each other and things are back online. But it put me in a bad mood for a couple of days. I've had my neck seize up for about 3 days now. In other words, I can't turn my head left or right because the muscles in my neck are just like pulled. So that's fun.
Did you catch the news about Blake 7 being available on BritBox?
Yes, I did, and I checked that out the second I saw your post on that, and I confirmed that myself, and I'm just like, hallelujah. I am going to take probably a Wednesday at some point and just start watching. Because Wednesdays are usually my day off, but at the moment they're a bit flooded because I think that's when What If and Lower Decks both refresh.
Gotcha.
And I had other stuff to watch this week, which I will talk about at Geek Out. But no, I do intend to do a massive rewatch of Blake 7. I'm finally glad that they got whatever was holding them up of bringing it to the U.S. cleared up. Now I wish they would do that with UFO. If you don't know what UFO is, it's a little show from the 1970s from ITV. That was a sci-fi show by the same people that did Thunderbirds. It had a sequel called Space 1999.
That I've heard of.
Oh, UFO was the original show. And it had this wonderful 60s theme. And it was, they kept flashing 1980. And it was, all this, moon base fully operational. And I'm just like, wow, you guys are really optimistic about the future.
That reminds me of when I watched the first, I think it was the first Ghidorah movie. It was around like 2001, 2002, or maybe before that, but it was close enough that 1999 was not the distant future. And they had the moon the moon city in 1999 or whatever. Yeah, 1999. I don't think that's what I said before, but yeah, there were some high hopes.
And this is unlike me looking through my old Cyberpunk 2020 books, RPG books, and going, well, they got the shit right, just not the technology. Where's my freaking cyberware, goddammit? Where's my vectored thrust air cars? Come on. You gave us all the down stuff and none of the good stuff. At the same time, though, they gave us smartphones. Anyway, on tonight's show, we've got a couple of birthdays, some Big Finish news, not a lot else. Things are quiet from the BBC right now. And then it looks like Thomas and I will be talking about the same thing in Geek Talk. Then we've got a review of Shame from Matt. Well, recited.
Right.
And then our episode summary, our final thoughts on our rating. Who's doing the summary tonight?
Me.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm glad you're aware because I did not send a reminder.
Yep.
That's my bad.
I wanted to be sure because I'm not sure where stuff is because we've had to cut Matt out of all.
Yeah,
those.
we moved around a bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was like I almost did. Like I remember checking probably last week and was like, okay. And then had to check like last night and was like, oh right. And I think I was thrown off because I stepped in for the one Matt was supposed to do. So
we rearranged the whole schedule, I think, at that point, or at least bits of it.
Yeah. So it was like me, Bill, me again, then Randy, Bill, and then me again. So
yeah, I'm afraid you get the short end of the stick there.
Yeah. Oh well.
I was willing to do this one, but if you got it, you got it, because really this one can be summarized in like 2 minutes or less. Anyway, so we've got 2 birthdays on the schedule. The first birthday is from August 11th, and is the birthday of Ron Grainer, the composer that originally composed the Doctor Who theme. Delia Derbyshire realized it, but Ron Grainer wrote the actual notes. So he would have been 99, but he died in 1981 at the age of 58. Next, on the 16th, we have the birthday of Rachel Talalay, who is a director in New Who, directed a lot during the Moffat era, especially series openings and finales and specials. She was well known for those. She turned 63. So, happy birthday, Ron and Rachel. And then moving on to Big Finish news, we have 3 releases from Big Finish, one of which was right after our last podcast, and that is the Ninth Doctor adventure, Respond to All Calls, with with Christopher Eccleston, Jan Francis, Damian Lynch, Mirren Mack, Forbes Mason, and Gemma Whalen. So I think this is either the first or second of the Ninth Doctor adventures with Eccleston, and I know they've. What's that?
It's volume 2, from what I recall.
Okay, yeah. I thought there might have been an earlier one, and they already have another one lined up.
Yeah.
So they got him now, and he's cranking them out. Also on the listing is Doctor Who: The Early Adventures has 2 releases this week. First is After the Daleks with Carol Ann Ford, Sean Biggerstaff, Ollie Higginston, Jonathan Guy Lewis, and Nicholas Briggs, which basically is what happens with Susan immediately after she's left behind in the Dalek invasion of Earth.
So is that Carol Ann Ford plus the documentary cast, or are they just kind of switching it up with new actors at this point?
I think it's new actors at this point, because it's just Susan left behind,
right?
And it's just supposed to be whoever's on Earth, or people acting whoever's on Earth.
Oh, so it's after. Okay. So,
yeah, it's after the Doctor leaves. Yeah.
The Early Adventures tag threw me off. So this is not on the TARDIS. This is okay.
Yeah, this is on Earth after the Doctor's left. It's kind of a whatever happened to Susan before the whatever happened to Susan.
Right. Okay.
Then we have another early adventure, The Secrets of the Det Sen, which I believe this one is another First Doctor adventure, with Lauren Cornelius taking up the role of Dodo Chaplet. Peter Purves, Jeremy Ang Jones, Paul Courtney Hugh, Carrie Gooderson, and Jamie Zubieri. So those are the 3 Big Finish releases this week.
But when I only recognized one cast member for a second, I thought you were going to say they finally got the right to the Planet of the Savages.
No. No, they're apparently doing a Steven and Dodo, I think. But yeah, that's now that what's her face, the person that played Dodo is dead. They have Big Finish now has a replacement. So that is all the news we have this week. Moving into
Before you go to Geek Talk, a minor rumor mill, like not even big enough for a bullet point, and that just is, people, please read articles and don't just bitch about headlines. Apparently, some like minor licensed merchandise broadcaster said something about the 14th Doctor is coming. They literally just meant that that Jodie Whittaker is leaving the role, and people were like going back and forth about whether this was a leak or whether they were lying. And no, they're just saying Jodie Whittaker's not in the role anymore. Just read the article before you get mad.
Yeah, remember, they technically have to get a new showrunner before they can pick a new doctor, so don't be holding your breath on those announcements anytime soon. Although you'd think they'd need to have somebody by, the final long version of 2022, or they might be doing a second Doctor where they don't reveal the face of the next Doctor until the following season.
Which, I mean, would be pretty interesting because it's been so damn long since that's happened.
That would be a very Chibnallian thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if they don't, if there's a potentiality that they do not have someone lined up already, and they're just deciding for whatever bizarre reason to not reveal who it is, then yeah, that would be an easy out to like, well, we don't need someone because we've just left it, ambiguous as to what the new Doctor looks like.
Yeah, well, at this point, I'm not even sure the BBC has any names to pull out of the hat for who they're even going to ask to be showrunner.
No, I mean, I know, given, which I'm pretty sure I wasn't aware at the time, but, the fact that even Chibnall was, really apprehensive, and they basically had to throw a ton of money at him for well, a ton of money in BBC terms anyway.
They had to make a lot of concessions.
Yeah, for him to be willing to do it, because he really didn't want to do it ultimately. Yep. So it's a matter of how many people are there that they want that actually want to do it. And as I forget if I brought it up on stream last time, but there is someone from the US who oh my god, I've blanked on their name now, but who was willing to, the guy who either co-created or just flat out created Babylon 5.
Oh, please no. Not, what is it, J. Michael Straczynski?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we were talking about him.
No.
Is there something particular that throws you off about him, or just the fact that he's not from England?
It's more the fact that I know the style of sci-fi drama he does, and that's not what I want out of my Doctor Who.
The only thing of his that I'm specifically familiar with is Jane Foster Thor run, but I know he's done a lot of other stuff.
From what I remember, the tweets he was putting out, he was like, no, I would want this to be very specifically still like Doctor Who. I would be willing to, not Americanize it and move to the UK to actually do it. And
it's not. It's not the fact that he's an American. It's not that. I just know his writing style. I watched some Babylon 5. I know what that's like. I've seen some of his other work. I know what that's like. he's very good at angsty drama, which is not what I want from my Doctor Who.
So my minor digression turned into into a full on tangent.
Yes, it did. Anyway, yeah, the only news from the BBC is there is no news.
Yep.
When they have a showrunner, they'll announce the showrunner because they really want to put people at ease. That, there is going to be a handoff now that they've already announced that the Balchinian is going away. So, we'll just have to wait for that announcement. And we may not get it until after the current season.
Yeah.
If they have anybody at all. Oh, excuse me. I got a little bit of the hiccups. Anyway, moving on to Geek Talk now, unless you've got any other objections, Bill.
Nope.
So, this week something new came out in the theaters and on HBO Max from the DC Universe, and that's James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. I saw it. I've seen it a couple of times, actually. Apparently, Tom has seen it.
Yep.
And I thought it was surprisingly good for what I expected. I am not saying that this is Oscar material by any stretch of the definition. But I was moderately amused. Of the members, I quite enjoyed, I think, King Shark the most. He made me chuckle. It was voiced by Sylvester Stallone, by the way.
He and Peacemaker seem to be the ones that everybody's talking about.
I thought Peacemaker was okay.
Oh, and the rat.
Oh, well, yeah, she was a little gem, but she was just a good actress. But Sly Stallone was playing King Shark as Rocky Balboa with even more brain damage, essentially. And he was just the most amusing, like, big dumb guy role I've seen in movies for a while. Peter Capaldi's Thinker was only kind of a brief role, and had a couple of lines that amused me, but otherwise he was just there. Margot Robbie, who had not impressed me as Harley Quinn up until now, I thought put in an excellent performance. Almost very Arlene Sorkin in her portrayal this time.
So she didn't really. You weren't a fan of her in the first two movies?
I was not. Actually, I haven't seen her in the second one, but
Gotcha.
I did see her in the original Suicide Squad, and I was not impressed. And she did have a few groaner moments in here, but a lot of her dialogue was almost direct. I could hear Harley Quinn from Batman the Animated Series making the same lines, so that was believable. Idris Alba was good as his Deadshot XB character. Apparently, he was supposed to directly replace Deadshot, and he had issues with that, so they created a custom character for him.
Yeah, as far as I can recall, it was like they were initially going to, but then they were like, oh wait, there is a chance we might be able to lure Will Smith back, so let's just leave Deadshot out of it and give him a new character.
Yeah, they didn't want
Bloodsport.
They didn't want to burn that bridge with Smith.
Yeah.
But they basically created an identical clone. And while most people were kind of disgusted I was highly amused by the Weasel. He's only in like the first 10 minutes of the movie.
I know the behind the scenes shots of Sean Gunn as the Weasel definitely seemed like he was putting his all into that mocap.
I swear to God, the people that did the animation for that, the CGI animation for that, should get in touch with Berkeley Breathed for making a Bloom County movie. Because the weasel was functionally Bill the cat. I'm watching how it moved. I'm watching how it basically did stuff. I'm like, oh my god, that's Bill the cat.
So the funny thing is I remember someone pointing out that's like, well, you can definitely tell that's Sean Gunn by the movements, and like watching it, I'm like, actually, yes, you kind of can, because I've seen him as like the lanky dude in like Guardians of the Galaxy, where he's playing that yeah, he's like just playing that sort of dumb space redneck character, and it's like, yeah, I can kind of see that this is Sean Gunn doing doing a mocap performance. Although he does get a cameo where he does show his actual face rather than playing weasels, so that's kind of nice. God, there's a lot of. It'll be interesting to be able to watch this again, because there feels like there's a shit ton of Easter eggs.
There is. They're all over the place.
Some would go over my head and others didn't.
I would bet it's a James Gunn movie that's literally made. I mean, it's made out of Easter eggs. That's the whole point of the Suicide Squad. So
it's kind of a blink and you'll miss it moment. So I will just say that the Sean Gunn showing his face cameo is him as Calendar Man in Belle Reve. So it's like, wow, wasn't expecting to see Calendar Man here, even if it's only for like 2 seconds.
Yeah, the Belle Reve scenes are kind of interesting. The whole beginning of the movie is freaking great. Oh, what's his face? The guy that was in the 2 Guardians of the Galaxy movies as the pirate leader. Well, also was from Walking Dead. Oh God, I've had to look up this. Yeah, I can never remember this guy's name.
Michael Rooker.
Michael Rooker.
I think that's it.
Yeah, Michael Rooker has an opening role in there, and it's just fucking hysterical. He's straight manning it, but just the ludicrousness of the situation he's in, it's just. You're like, oh God.
Yeah.
And these are your teammates as they haul the weasel out of the truck.
Without giving away plot points, because I know this is something that the DCEU has been criticized on. How is the big bad? Like, on a compared to other villains, is he better, worse, or average?
I will use 2 words: ridiculously awesome.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, I kind of hoped that when I saw who it was, but
I mean, yeah, it's like I mean, as partly as I had reservations as I did, I was also like, fuck yes. James Gunn doing Starro, fuck yes. I'm all for this. The fucker should have been the villain of the first Justice League movie. I will die on that hill. And this shows exactly why. If it had been James Gunn doing it, he would have made it work, because he made this work.
It did.
He both revels in how fucking ridiculous this gigantic starfish is, but also makes it a threat. Like,
and it is
so perfect.
You watch this thing walk down there, and it is the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen. And yet you're still looking at it like, oh, holy hell.
Yeah.
There is one guy that I love the quote he does. He's one of the guys back at, like, with Amanda Waller back at the main desk, and they just regain communications, and they look down. It's just like, oh my God, we've got a fucking kaiju down here.
I think that was in one of the trailers.
Yeah, it was in the trailers.
I don't know. I didn't watch I didn't watch many of the trailers.
Gotcha.
But that statement, I can tell you, whether it's in the trailers or not, that pretty much was exactly what my brain was saying right at that moment.
Yeah. yeah. Honestly, this is, And I know when I said this in like a specific Discord, so someone was like, "Well, it's not a very high bar to clear, is it?" But this is my favorite DC movie of this current crop. By like probably a wide
starting
margin,
when?
but I like DCEU.
So from Man of Steel on?
Yeah, from Man of Steel onwards. I would almost say all time, but I haven't seen all of them, so that would be a bit disingenuous to claim.
I didn't rate it quite that high. I think I did like Shazam better than I liked this. Because I don't know, that movie always just puts a big grin on my face.
And Wonder Woman usually seems to be the highest rated DC movie since the 90s.
This one?
That would probably be the bar to clear.
Yeah, I think I liked this better than I liked Wonder Woman. Definitely had a better soundtrack.
Well, I mean, like, the one thing that would hold back the original Wonder Woman for me is just that the third act kind of falls apart. Like, I love pretty much the only one of like the last couple of DC movies that I've been, I mean, aside from Joker, which I was kind of iffy on, but as far as like the ones that are actually trying to continue the main DCEUs to a point, the only one I've really had issues with was, or at least major issues with, was Wonder Woman 84. Pretty much everything around that, from Aquaman onwards, I've been like, oh my god, the you know, like, they finally got back on track a bit here.
Joker fans, please leave your hate comments below. We need the interactions.
I mean, like, you know, I don't like, if people like the
so if you want to term it as DCEU Phase 2, you know, everything after Justice League, this has impressed you the most.
Yeah. And I think it really just is because it's just like, James Gunn was the turning point in the MCU for him just kicking down the door of being like, we need to embrace how fucking ridiculous this is. And this is basically him doing the same thing to DC. It's like, hey, you can do stuff that's dark, but also make it be fun. Hey, remember what fun is? Like, I mean, like, again, like, Shazam, Aquaman have some fucking ridiculous shit that I love as well. So again, it was like, hey, cool, we're getting on the right track. But this was like, hey, you can do dark shit and make it fun, rather than having to just be really dour and bland and depressing or whatever. Like, it can be fucking fun.
And this gets fucking dark.
Yeah.
If you think of the body count in this movie, be it, you know, villains or the entire population of an island, pretty much.
Yeah. Depending on how you want to handle the events of Man of Steel, you could maybe argue that this has the highest death count in the DCEU.
Oh, I think it does.
Yeah. Yeah, I think generally also what makes this work, like, apart from just James Gunn embracing the ridiculousness and shit, is that he's a director who is known from his work on the Guardians of the Galaxy movies to make ensemble casts work, whereas David Ayer just didn't make it work, and like, whoever wrote it didn't make it work the first time around with Suicide Squad. It's like, well, there you go. If James Gunn doesn't do the next one, then you at least need a director who's used to and good with ensemble cast movies.
Yeah.
Because as much as there are like main focuses, plenty of the other characters have moments to shine, rather than it just being like the first Suicide Squad movie where it's basically Deadshot, Harley, and maybe like one or two characters have a moment here or there.
Although,
that's it.
if they make another one, what are they going to call it? Because they've had Suicide Squad and The Suicide Squad.
Yeah. Like, I would half think at that point they'll have to start doing like Suicide Squad subtitle.
And they can't even name them after the most popular character that is in both, because she's also the star of Birds of Prey.
Yep.
Maybe the next one will be Amanda Waller and the Suicide Squad.
I mean, I would hope that they just go with the Marvel method of just like movie, like title, subtitle, like moving forward. I mean, the only reason you wouldn't is...
They learn all the worst lessons from Marvel, not the good ones.
Yeah.
Except for hiring James Gunn, but that was a lucky accident.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how Gunn would top this, though.
Yeah. I mean, like, part of me wants him to do at least one more Suicide Squad movie, but only really just because it's like he kind of got fucked over by COVID in this case. As far as the release goes. So it's like, it would be interesting to see him do another one, especially like, or at least just more in the DCEU. Like, I want him to fuck around with this universe a bit more if he's like done with Marvel after Guardians 3.
Oh God, I hadn't seen that poster before. The poster literally says on it, "They're dying to save the world." Oh God. All I'm going to tell you guys is that
I heard there's a body count on this one.
Oh, there's a huge fucking body count.
Yeah. Like, yeah, again, this is like very likely the highest body count in the entire DCEU.
And there's almost nobody safe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Without no spoilers about which characters do die, although, to be honest, a lot of them are kind of predictable just if you've seen any of the trailers. There is a death early that is very, like, no one's safe.
Yep.
Like, there was one where I'm like, oh, I didn't see that coming. And there's honestly a death later that I did not see coming, so, yeah.
I mean, the only one that would legitimately shock me is if they killed off Harley Quinn.
They almost did. But, just to point out, technically speaking, the amount of Suicide Squad members they sent on this was what, about 10, 12, something like that?
Yeah.
Of that, only 4 are on the return plane. I'm not going to say who they were.
Yeah.
But yes. The opening credits uses the song People Who Died, and it's just fucking perfect for this movie.
Which, you know, that's the benefit of actually having James Gunn instead of DC trying to get David Ayer to ape James Gunn, is the song choices actually fucking work.
Although David Ayer does say that none of the songs in the theatrical cut of the first movie are the ones he chose.
Well, that's what I mean. That's why I'm pushing blame on the studio, being more like, here, do this more like James Gunn or whatever. It doesn't surprise me that they fucked with it and were like, no, you have to use these songs or something. But yeah, it's just like, here you actually have James Gunn who's going to be like, no, I'm going to use the songs I want.
I'm using these songs or I fucking walk. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's songs that actually fit and work.
I'm going to use the songs I want or I go back to Marvel. Well, I am going back to Marvel, but this movie won't get finished.
Yeah, he's like, I have job security. I made Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
And apparently is not a dick like certain other people that DC poached from Marvel.
I mean, Gunn is like, I'm willing to bounce back and forth here. Do one of these for them, do one for you, do one for them, do one for you. Screw me over on something like this, I'll be working on them exclusively.
Yeah.
I mean, James Gunn would be amazing at a Green Lantern Corps movie. Like, not one focusing on the Earth Lanterns, but like starring Chip and Kilowog.
Well, yeah, part of me, I think I've said this like since like the I think I've been saying like this door became open as as a possibility. I'm like, oh my god, we might get the freaking Red Lantern cat if James Gunn is able to do some Green Lantern shit, and I would be all for that.
I honestly hope they wouldn't jump straight to that. That's part of my issue with a lot of these is they're like, oh, we need to do all the brand new storylines, and I'm like, those storylines were only possible because they had decades of build up for the characters in and of themselves.
Yeah.
I don't care just as long as they don't make the Green Lantern suit animated. Anyway, so yes, this is if you're into DCEU movies and you think they've been a bit of a downer recently, this is definitely, you need to see this. Because you're not going to come out with this with a, oh god, that was a depressing thing.
Yeah, pretty much so long as you can handle...
Unless you get attached to the members of the squad, apparently.
Like, so long as you can handle the blood and guts, you should be fine.
Oh, yeah. There is a scene fairly early on where you watch a bird come down and start feasting on the remains of somebody. And you watch as it pulls meat out of their neck hole.
Oh.
And swallows it down. I'm like, ugh. And that's just the beginnings of how gross some of the shit gets. You literally watch somebody get his face shot off. And again, oh yes, and then there's King Shark's wonderful way of disposing of people. He eats them. And you watch him eat people. So yeah, or as King Shark says in this, nom nom. And yes, that is kind of how Sly Stallone sounds in this. Nom 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 nom. Grrr! Yeah. It's it has to be seen to believed. To be believed is all I can say.
Yeah, and also just generally, Viola Davis is just she's still great as a mother. Like, she was one of the few standout good things about the original Suicide Squad, and thankfully she's just as good here
as the queen bitch. Mind. Yeah. I mean, there's no other way to deal with her. There is a moment where something happens to Waller, and I'm just like, yes. Also, you do get to see Nathan Fillion as TDK.
That's right.
I did not realize that. Were you aware, Thomas, that the flashback scenes with Ratcatcher, where she's talking to her father, that was Taika Waititi? I'm surprised. I mean, I know James Gunn has worked with Taika before, but I didn't realize. Yeah.
Yeah, like he was mentioned in the cast, but they never said as who.
Yeah, he's the original Ratcatcher.
Yeah. So when he did show up, I was like, oh, so that's the role he was in.
So you know what I just said about Weasel, and they should get the animators to build a cat. it actually says here on Wikipedia that the portrayal was based on Bill the Cat. That, I mean, I freaking saw it, and I'm like, oh my god, that's Bill the Cat, and I'm like, Jesus.
I guess the people involved would be of the generation where that kind of a reference would make sense, I guess.
Well, I mean, the Burt Breathitt's still making Bloom County comics today. He just puts them on Facebook. So, it's still out there. It's just he's been doing this on and off since the 80s and through the 90s, and took a break through the 2000s, and then came back about 3, 4, or 5 years ago. So, yeah. Also, for a giant anthropomorphic shark, there are scenes where he's hunkered down and he almost looks cute. But yes, so definitely, if Guardians, if you liked Guardians of the Galaxy and are into the DCEU, this is probably the movie for you.
Yeah.
If you like John Cena, you're probably going to like this movie too, just to see him play Peacemaker. So yeah. If you're in here to watch Peter Capaldi, you're going to be a little disappointed because he's kind of meh in there. He has about 2 to 3 good lines in the entire thing, and that's about it. Anyway, is there anything more you want to say about the movie before we move on?
Not really. I mean, I guess it's funny because there are some characters where I'm like, oh, I almost wanted to see a bit more of them because, like, they're just some obscure-ass character that I would never have heard of before. But ultimately, like, oh, well. I guess I shouldn't be surprised that that's kind of why they were picked.
All right.
But yeah.
Now, moving on. I believe we have a review of Shame from Matt.
Yes.
He's been trying to catch up on the audios.
And yeah, we did not have an assigned reader, so I'll go ahead with that. So it's Zagreus. Matt says the general thing he liked has to be the throwbacks and mentions. It's everything good you want out of an anniversary episode. Previous Doctors coming in both as new characters and for a few moments coming back as past selves, and the lovely quick throwback lines from the past, and even mentions of Alice that had been going on since the 5th Doctor. General things he did not like. He says, oh my word, this plot is over padded. It takes forever to reach the main plot, padding it wildly by spending too much time on the hologram trips, and not focusing more on introducing the Doctor characters. His favorite moment is the not yet Doctors meeting with Charlie and taming the Jabberwocky to make it to the Central Tower. That was a great scene. His least favorite moment was the constant rattling on of being Zagreus in the last act, even though the Doctor had already figured out what was going on and was going to stop Rassilon again. The great voice cast still helps him raise his final score to a 4. He just wishes they had kept it more on point.
Which does make Matt the downer of our voting.
Yes.
And we'll drop the average for that episode from that 4.83 that we were all staggered on to a 4.63. Moving it down the rankings from where it was, which was the highest rated Big Finish we'd ever had, to about number 42 on our list, and having Susan's War Part 2, Susan's War Part 4, and Class in Remembrance above it. So
still high, just not as high.
Not as high, and not leading the pack anymore. All right. Well, that was that. That was that particular bit. Now let's talk about today's episode.
Mm-hmm.
So, you had the summary, Thomas?
Yep.
Let me pull up the stopwatch. Alright, you ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, we open on a portal, randomly appearing in an empty shop, and a kid named Oscar coming through it, being chased down by Ronnie and Clyde, and brought back to what turns out to be a time fisher. Sarah Jane takes the boy back through, only to discover the time and place is her hometown, the year her parents died. A little town, a village of Foxgrove, which turns out to be a ploy to lure her out by the trickster. Sarah Jane tells Luke about this and how she figures it's a trap, resolving not to take the bait, only to change her mind later, and both of them end up going through the time fisher. Meanwhile, Clyde and Ronnie notice the two have seemingly disappeared and try to find them. Back in the past, Sarah Jane meets her parents, realizing how much they loved her and that they're actually back on the exact day her parents died. She can't help but disable the engine of their car to prevent their deaths from happening. When they go back through the time fisher to see how things have changed, however, they find London in ruins as the trickster reveals themselves as the mastermind behind the trap, and that Sarah Jane's actions have given the Earth over to him now. Also in the alternative present, Clyde and Ronnie have arrived unaffected by the changes, also having been chased by the kid Oscar who turned out to be a Grask, thanks to the puzzle box they had on them. Eventually they convince the Grask to help them, and it allows Ronnie to go back through the fissure and tell Sarah Jane the location that the trickster will manifest in, accidentally calling her by name in front of Sarah Jane's mother. After trying to contain the trickster, the group run back, and Sarah Jane fixes the engine of the car when her parents show up. Realizing some of what's going on, her parents say their goodbyes and opt to sacrifice themselves to set things right, defeating the trickster. As things return to normal in the present, Clyde gives the puzzle box over to the Grask as part of the deal they made. And Sarah Jane, Luke, and Ronnie return, closing the fissure forever behind them, and Sarah Jane destroys the machine that she had that could open it. After getting home, Sarah Jane and Luke share a moment where, as sad as it is, Sarah Jane is still glad to have met her parents, and Luke considers himself lucky to have a mum at all. The end.
Alright, you did that in 2 minutes, 25 and a half seconds. Yeah, it's not the most intricate plot. But let's talk about what we liked about it. And Bill, you are first.
I think I'm going to have to go with I like the fact that Luke at least could comprehend the consequences of messing with history and was trying to take appropriate actions. I mean, I get it's definitely an improvement over a lot of stories, not necessarily Sarah Jane, but just in general, where the companion or the younger character seems to be, or the one who's never time traveled, seems to make a lot of dumb decisions. This is not like that, so that was a refreshing change.
All right, Thomas, how about you?
I just generally like the the fact that they go out of their way to have conflict within Sarah Jane, because she realizes this is most likely a trap, but she just can't help herself. Is nice, like, rather than it just being, oh, she's dumb and she goes for it without thinking, it's like, no, she's smart enough to know this is probably a trap, but she still can't help herself because, you know, she's still only human.
All right. So I guess I liked the glimpse into Sarah Jane's past a bit. I mean, you know, we've only learned a little bit of her, you know, her extended family from Canine and Company. but getting to see where she was born, where her family, that kind of thing, was something new for the character, and I appreciated that. Now let's talk about what we disliked. Bill.
So I felt Sarah Jane almost acted like she was hypnotized once she got into the past, and it felt out of character. I'm trying to remember which episode was the one where they kind of like removed Sarah Jane from the timeline by replacing her with somebody else.
Whatever happened to Sarah Jane?
That was whatever.
Yeah.
So that was a season 1 episode. So literally exactly one season before this episode, we had seen how bad it would fuck things up if Sarah Jane did not have the upbringing that she did or died. She's also one of the most experienced time travelers on the Earth in this time zone. And yet, as soon as she gets to the past, she's like, what if I made a paradox? No, what if I made a big paradox? What if I made a huge paradox that makes it impossible for me to be here?
Exactly. I mean, I'm sitting here going, you're basically cracking the web of time. You're creating the big-ass freaking, like, universe-destroying paradox.
And it's... I could kind of understand it with Rose because she was an inexperienced time traveler. She had not had the time to develop the self-control. She just, was new at this all around. Sarah Jane, not only had she traveled with the Doctor for 3 seasons, but she's also a much older, wiser, more mature woman, and does the exact same thing that Rose at 19 did.
Yeah, Rose is still technically a teenager.
Yeah. I mean, to a point, to be fair, with whatever happened to Sarah Jane, it was more the girl who was supposed to die was tricked by the trickster.
Right, but I mean, they saw that if Sarah Jane died, it would have fucked up the whole timeline. So she's like, well, what if I just never became who I am? What if I changed every detail about my life to the point of, even Luke mentioned, if you change this, you'll probably never meet the Doctor, never meet me. It'll change the timeline that much.
And she's like, oh, what could this hurt? And I'm like, everything! Yeah.
I mean, the funny thing is, even the trickster is like, well, yeah, it was a pretty insignificant change. It's just that started a chain of events or something that allowed this to happen.
It's still a functional paradox. She went back in time and changed her own past. Now, following the timeline back to the present, she would have no need to do that. She would have no curiosity about 1951. Therefore, she wouldn't make that midnight trip back. Therefore, she wouldn't have fixed her past. Therefore, things would have proceeded the way they were. What you wind up with is 2 separate timelines trying to coexist in the same space at the same time. And laws of physics tells us that's very, very bad.
I mean, I generally... Something I picked up on that I wouldn't have picked up on the first time around was like how vague they are about the events as far as she's aware of them. And then suddenly it's like, oh, this was a self-fulfilling thing. Of like, oh, we basically just find out why her parents seemingly left her behind and drove off. It's because, well, you just kind of made what was supposed to happen. So it was
fucking
just kind
Moffat
of,
loop.
I guess, is how it just all happened.
It's always happened this way and will always happen this way. Fucking Moffat loop. I mean, this isn't even Stephen Moffat's writing, and I want to go kick Moffat in the dick.
Though I will admit, like, we went through the portal and we're in an alternate version of whatever thing is. It's like watching more, like, maybe it's just because of how the MCU handles divergent timelines and stuff. Watching like so much of that with Loki, and then coming back to this, it's like, well, technically, wouldn't they just go back into where they came from, and the fucked up present would just be a divergent timeline? Like,
No,
this isn't that would be a Dragon Ball Z solution.
No. Sarah Jane's making the wrong choice. TVA, go get her, prune her. Yeah. Yeah, the TVA versus the Time Lords. I don't think I want to see that fight. It's time for Temporal Smackdown. Yeah. All right. So I think were we up to Thomas?
Yeah, but I'm not. It's funny because I don't really have. God, what even is there that I think?
Oh, I think I think I already know who the highest and lowest ratings are going to be.
I mean, like there are, there are things, but
caught in the middle again, Bill.
Huh? No, I was thinking you were going to be the middle, unless you feel about this episode the same way I do.
Oh, I do.
God. It's kind of funny because I feel like the only thing I really had was already covered by Bill, because a lot of the stuff in this I can at least get, like Sarah Jane's whole mentality. I can actually like understand the conflict and all that in there, and it's like, for as smart as she is, she's still a human being, and this is a very complex mental gymnastics thing to do. That's like, oh god, no, I'm gonna have to let my parents die. It's like, yeah, I can see where that would be coming from. So it's more like the time fuckery that's like, okay, yeah, there's iffy things with that, and like some people would probably give it a complete pass just because this is aimed at a younger audience, but it's like, so was old her.
Yeah, it gets no pass from me. I will say this in its defense: at least she didn't touch the baby.
Yeah,
true.
Because then it would have been a complete Rose Tyler cock-up.
Although it's funny because they even they even mentioned classic Who lore that would have messed up with Father's Day, because she talks to, like, the whole explosion idea. I'm pretty sure that never happened in Father's Day. It was something different. It just made a not a Vortisaur, whatever they called them, but basically a Vortisaur just come in and like eat her or something like that, or destroy the TARDIS or whatever
Chronivore,
it did.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I was kind of wondering that in Father's Day about why there wasn't a huge energy discharge, but apparently the Chronivore just immediately ate it when it happened. It's just
this is what I wish Matt was here, because he could do the Marvin Martian voice. Where's the kaboom? There's supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
Well, he may not be having that Marvin the Martian voice anymore.
True.
We have no idea what the COVID has done to his vocal cords.
Yeah.
I know at least his regular speaking seemed fairly fine for a short update video he did on YouTube. But
okay, that's good. I mean, he could have come out and he could have sounded like a cereal smoker, Could have sounded like Marge's aunts.
If he went on a ventilator, that would have been more likely.
Yeah, true.
Which, thankfully that never happened.
Yeah. Anyway, I am with Bill on this. That I thought I'm sitting here watching this entire thing going, Sarah Jane should have known better. I mean, like I said, if Sarah Jane had been younger or less experienced, but she is supposed to be the wise one in this show. So her acting completely irresponsible. Bothers the heck out of me. Okay, favorite scene. Bill.
So I'm going to go with Clyde and Ronnie befriending the Grask. I think that's, just a perfect Doctor Who thing to do, to take this person that seems to be, one of the monsters of the episode and be like, actually, we're going to turn him into one of our weapons. I don't know if befriending is the right word, but making it a temporary ally of him.
Making him at least sympathetic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can go with that. Thomas?
Honestly, just because it almost made me cry, just the farewell between Sarah Jane and her parents, because that was just very yep, well, decently written family stuff that's gonna get me. And just generally that whole scene of yeah, of course she was never gonna be able to be like, hey parents, get in this car and go off and die. So having the parents just make the decision to do it is well, sort of gives her a get out of jail free, but also it's just yeah, that
yeah,
showing that they were smart enough to realize what's going on. It's yeah, fair enough.
I have a downside to that, which I'll talk about next. But before that, my favorite scene, I think, is Ronnie coming up and just going, Sarah Jane, and it's what?
Yeah.
It's wow, way to be subtle, Ronnie.
Yeah.
They were just
she didn't know about the alter ego.
Oh, she did, because they had just told her.
Oh.
In the tent.
Well,
literally 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean the second time she yelled Sarah Jane?
The second time she's looking up, yes. The first time I understood it. The second time was a whoopsie.
Yeah. I think the idea is at first she didn't realize that they were with her mom. So, and also she just wasn't thinking.
Well, it was so funny. I'm looking for Sarah Jane Smith. You're looking at her right there on the ground. Such a what the fuck moment.
It is. All right, so least favorite scenes.
My least favorite scene would have to be when Luke is trying to talk Sarah Jane out of making an enormous paradox, and she just comes up with one line after the other again, like she had been hypnotized. That scene specifically is what I was thinking when I said it was like she was hypnotized.
It doesn't feel to me like she was hypnotized. It just feels to me like she's being absolutely careless.
It felt like she had a compulsion, like there was something like a perception filter that was convincing her that this is the right path, no matter what argument is made against it.
I didn't see that at all.
Maybe it's just because of how manic and how quickly she came up with the arguments. Maybe
yes, because she was self-justifying way too much. Oh, it'll be all right. Yeah.
Right.
I could almost see David Tennant looming over her shoulder, shaking his head, going, no.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
I've been down this road. No.
Uh-huh.
All right. Thomas, your least favorite scene?
Honestly, probably the opening scene of the first episode. Just because it's yes, let's chase down this scared child who, it's ultimately, it's a ploy, but it's it's funny that the first reaction is just, yes, let's bolt after this scared child.
You ready? 1, 2, 3, get him! Yeah. Yeah. So
that moment actually, it went by so quickly, or I accidentally fast forwarded through part of it. It was just like a snap.
It was a little bit too long for me, but yeah. Anyway, my least favorite scene is the one that Thomas mentioned as his favorite scene, which is the parents realizing they're the cause of this and realizing what they had to do and drive off to die, because they're basically pulling a fucking Pete Tyler.
Yep.
Pretty much straight from Father's Day. Oh,
Except
the car's here for me. I know what I must do.
Except it's worse because he understood what the paradox was. Nobody really even mentioned, like, they had no idea what the paradox was other than the car not starting. They didn't know that they had to leave the baby behind or anything. They just kind of, they came up with that because of, like, things dying when they touched it. But, like, it seemed like they came to that conclusion really quickly.
Ronnie had said in front of the mom, your parents haven't got in the car, have they?
Right.
Or your parents never drove away, did they? Or something like that.
The leaving her behind part, did they ever say that?
Well, they just were like, well, we're not going to let our baby die with us. So they kind of leave the baby behind intentionally.
I don't think they knew they were supposed to die, though.
Yeah, like, I mean, they kind of just piece it together from what Ronnie said and the fact that they're, everything.
It's still.
So you think they were just really really intuitive about it, basically?
So it's more like it's more perceptive, I guess, than like they're picking up. They're not complete idiots, so they're picking up on like, okay, everything's going to shit, and everything we're touching is like rotting or just wasting away. This probably has something to do with us. And like, again, like what Ronnie said of like, oh, your parents haven't gone away in the car yet. And they're kind of just piecing it together. Like, they have like an entire conversation, basically. It's very like a brief, but like they have a conversation about like, well, why is it so important that like whether we went for a drive or not, or something like that. And then like, oh, they kind of just add it up in their head. All this fucked up shit's happening right now. And it seems to have something to do with us. And, they see these mysterious new people standing around the car. So I guess it's just a matter of they put two and two together. And it's like, well, okay.
Okay. By the way, this is written by the same guy that wrote Whatever Happened to Sarah Jane, so. And also wrote The Wedding of Sarah Jane Smith and Goodbye, Sarah. So pretty much this guy wrote all of the Trickster episodes.
Seemingly, yeah.
But yeah, my major thing about that is just the fact that it does seem that they do several leaps of logic. I mean, they're given part of it, but they seem to piece the puzzle together really quick. And then proceed to be, oh yeah, we have to do this to save you. Let's go, and it's pretty much Pete's dad's plot line.
Right.
And I was checking to make sure he didn't write that. He didn't, so. It just felt really, wow, this is the same story all over again. So that's my opinion. To be
fair, like I've only seen Father's Day maybe twice, so maybe it's why my brain didn't go there immediately. And I probably haven't seen it since we reviewed it, which even though that was in like the last year or so.
Well, I would say if you have 45 minutes, sit down and watch it, and you're going to go, oh.
Oh, like my brain's adding it up now, but it's also just like I guess I like this compared to that, so my brain's like, oh, who cares? Father's Day's crap, or whatever the hell my opinion of it was at the time I saw it. I don't know. It probably had a similar reaction from me just by virtue of, oh, family stuff, that's going to get me.
Before we go into final thoughts, I have a question. Did they explain anywhere like what the fair or festival or whatever was that had all like the Union flags hanging up and everything?
Oh, it's just a town fete. Like a village fete or whatever.
Oh, I thought they were saying that was like the name of the town.
No, it's a village festival.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because like it was kind of standing out to me because it's like my understanding, at least from the way that people in other countries talk, is that only the U.S. puts so many flags up all over the place. So when I saw
Well, I
all the
mean,
Union flags and the screen caps, I was like, yeah, that's really
yeah.
weird
I mean, to be
because it's
fair, it
not
is
like the coronation
Yeah.
or the war or anything.
I mean, it is 1951, so I
Hmm.
don't know. Like, like I feel like I could buy
Maybe they still had like a
less
1945
symbolism.
mentality with that regard.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, it's only a few years post-war, so
Right.
Mm.
it is pretty much they're still celebrating the fact that they are still that
Hmm.
they did not lose World War II. I
Mm.
mean, like
They're
somebody
still on
mentions in the
rationing. I know that.
yeah they mentioned in the I
Yeah.
was about to say that they mentioned in the episode they're still on rationing.
Hmm.
Mm.
Okay, so that leads into final thoughts.
Yep.
And yeah, as I insinuated in the beginning, this plot definitely felt really derivative. We didn't even touch on the Pyramids of Mars comparison, although that was not really a negative in any way. That kind of, if anything, kind of tied into, the Sarah Jane character and the sort of thing she experiences. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, this in a lot of ways, it's Father's Day, but done more sloppy. Um, and yeah, the whole predestination paradox thing, it's hard to do it right, and one might argue that it's impossible to do right because it relies on the entire plot being started by the paradox. Um, and yeah, I'm not a fan of using that, especially using it too much. I know this wasn't actually a Moffat produced show, but still, actually, it might have been. It was before Moffat was doing any producing, but still, um, yeah, it does not incline me to like the episode anymore. And yeah, if anything, I almost feel like this might have benefited from being a three-parter because I think seeing more of the dark future um, would have probably maybe even fleshed it out a bit and helped add stakes. I felt like a lot of the plot points just came really quickly and easily. Um, and maybe they wouldn't have felt so like rushed and unbelievable if they had a little bit more time to breathe. Particularly Sarah Jane's very quick decision making. Um, so altogether, yeah, I'm not a big fan of this episode at all.
By the way, Thomas, you gave Father's Day a 4.5.
Ah. I guess it's just intervening time is potentially
He likes this one that much
like
more
in
than the
hindsight.
4.5.
Yeah. I feel like in hindsight I'd probably go back and dock that. Or it was a matter of it was brought up. I would have to go back and watch our review because I feel like in hindsight I don't remember thinking all that much of that. But it might just be that they're like them being similar ideas, they're going and like the family attachment stuff is gonna make me have similar reactions when I haven't seen them in a while. Whereas if I actually look at them with a critical eye, my view may change. But yeah, like I've seen this at least once before. Um and honestly, I can definitely get the negatives and there's a lot of we kind of sideline Clyde a bit because again, 3 side characters is a bit much. Although I would argue Sarah Jane usually handles that pretty well. But yeah, like I feel like the emotional core of this is good enough for me to willingly overlook some of the more blatant negatives that it might have. So it is one of those things where, like, you know, if I go through and watch it like a couple more times, eventually my opinion may change somewhat. Sort of like when we did Vincent and the Doctor, and my opinion, like, from what my opinion originally was in that episode to when we finally reviewed it, my opinion shifted quite a lot. But at least for now, I still have a fairly positive opinion on this. And, like, you know, it might change with time. My opinion might sour on it somewhat, but at least for now. And I think most of it is what carries it for me, is just that I'm able to be distracted by Elizabeth Sladen knocking it out of the park with her acting. Because she just has so much to work with, of all the shit that Sarah Jane's going through. But yeah, like, I really enjoy this. I can understand why people would not, especially with the comparisons to some bullshit that Moffat's pulled before, and just, yeah. But that being said, I still really enjoy this.
Alright, so, while I agree, Sarah Jane does act her heart out in this, it's still, some of that acting I feel was put in the wrong place. And the writing in this is derivative and in some places out of character. And in other places does something that makes me frustrated. So the writing is really going to drag this down for me. The acting is good. Special effects are fine for Sarah Jane Adventures. It's just that writing. And that's going to give it issues, because both being derivative and using a plot convenience item bothers me. So shall we rate it?
Yes, so yeah, as I always do with low episodes, I look through my past ratings to see, you know, which it most compared to, and to see if my initial instinct was harsher than I'd been in the past, and it lines up pretty well with episodes I've given a 2.0 in the past, so I think that's where I'm going.
Ouch. All right, Thomas.
I'll say this much. If I wasn't willing to give Father's Day a 5 because of the emotional stuff, and to be honest, I think generally Father's Day had a lot dragging it down by comparison. Honestly, I'm going to have to rewatch Father's Day because I might bump it down quite a bit. But at least for now, I am giving this a 4.5.
Where am I going to put this? I couldn't give it any higher than a 3. The question is, am I as down as a 2 or is it a 2.5? I think just because of the acting of the main cast, it's a 2.5. But it's a very thin 2.5. That, by the way, will average the score to a 3.0. Which will rank it at 344 out of 399 things reviewed. It's on par with Class, or actually no, that's Big Finish. Nothing really it's on par with. It is better than Torchwood Greeks Bearing Gifts, and not as good as Canine Regeneration Liberation.
Oh, that's right, because you're comparing it to spin-off materials.
Yes, I'm trying to compare spin-off to spin-off, Big Finish to Big Finish.
It's on par with Secrets of the Stars.
It is? Is that?
Yep.
Oh, yes, it is. I missed that one. Thank you, Bill. So it is on par with Secrets of the Stars. Better than Greeks Bearing Gifts, and not as good as Class, the Coach with the Dragon Tattoo, and Canine Regeneration Liberation. So there, once again, is 344 out of 399 things reviewed. That is all we have to say about Sarah Jane Adventures, The Temptation of Sarah Jane Smith, at least until Matt gets around to doing a late review.
So yeah, please comment, let us know, do you agree with me with the low score, Randy in the middle, or Thomas with the high score? Don't forget to like the video and ring the bell on YouTube to get our notifications and our new exit ports every Monday. And don't forget to follow us on Twitch if you want to see our streams every Tuesday night.
Alright, so next time we're going to continue with more Sarah Jane Adventures and move on to the following season with Sarah Jane Adventures, Prisoner of the Jadoon, written by Phil Ford, and starring Elizabeth Sladen as Sarah Jane Smith, Tommy Knight as Luke Smith, Daniel Anthony as Clyde Langer, Anjali Mohindra as Rani Chandra, and Alexander Armstrong as the voice of Mr. Smith. We will see you next week.